everybody to the wonderful return of the Zero Budget Podcast live. How's that for a return, huh? Am I right? Thank you. I appreciate it. I think I did the timing all right, so hopefully they don't hear our disgusting voices before we started. And I think they can see our faces right now, so I think we're all good to go.
Amazing.
We're
they
back.
can see us all.
I got my coffee here in one hand, got water in the other. So, we are all dressed for success, as they say. So, let's start off with boys. How you doing? Matt, where have we been?
I think it's been 7 months since the last one.
Yeah, we were. Our last podcast was in October, where we talked about how we were never going to stop doing it, and then we took a short 7-month break.
Well, I think, just life.
I stopped doing it.
I was still at university, and I imagine I was actually trying to succeed that semester, which I did.
No, congratulations.
I finally got all A's and B's for once in my life.
Congrats.
And then then I know you got busy.
Yeah, I got really busy with theater stuff. So I was staying after school every other day. So it got really hard to time manage. And it's funny because I was listening to some of our older podcasts just to see how bad they were, and they were. But some of the things that I was talking about there were time management, and then that came back to bite us in the ass. Anyways, proper intro time. Welcome to the Zero Budget Podcast. I am your host, Juptej Singh. With me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Matthew Hanks. And today, I think is our first time we have a special guest on the podcast, the illustrious, the talented, the brilliant mind, did I mention beautiful boy, Kyle, KJ Dawson. Round of applause for Kyle.
You sound like my mother.
Welcome to the podcast, Kyle.
What's brackin', bro?
How you doing, man?
Man, I'm good to be here. Good to be alive. Good to good to just both you guys for a little bit.
So let's talk about why we decided to bring the podcast back.
Well, admittedly, it was on less serious terms, I think.
So, Kyle and I had started this job at a wonderful company called Cutco. Well, technically, we were independent contractors for Vector, and we're not allowed to display ourselves as employees of the company. So, Kyle and I started this wonderful job being independent contractors at Vector. And it was one of the worst experiences we've had in our lives. So, while we were going through the job, we were talking to each other, and we were like, we have to expose these motherfuckers. As if we have any sort of social pull for anything. So we were like, we have to go in, and we have to show everyone who these evil fucks are. But then while we were talking about the podcast and what we would do this episode, we realized Cutco is the least terrible thing happening right now. And it would be kind of jarring to talk about, racial tensions in the United States, what it's like being a young up-and-coming artist, and then this fucking knife company. So,
so not comparable.
Yeah. So instead, I figured we could talk about it for a bit, maybe 5 minutes, but then we get into the real things that actually matter. So Kyle, why don't you talk us through your experience on what it was like working with Cutco?
Alright, let's see. Well, I got a bunch of texts from, I guess the managers of Cutco and they were like, "Hey, so and so recommended you. They said you'd be like great for the job, so you should like check it out." And I was like, "Bro, this is a whole scam." And I got another one, and then I was like, maybe it's not. And then I called my mom, and she was like, "Yeah, I used to sell Cutco back in the day. It's weird, but like, fuck it, do it, right?" So I was like, word, okay. So I interviewed, and basically, I was told I was going to be $15 base pay. Didn't really tell, the increments of when you get paid, just $15. And I was like, that's pretty nice pay, you know what I'm saying? So I took it without realizing that I also had to sell my soul. So, God, I don't even know where to start.
Let's start at the interview process.
All right.
Because that was kind of strange.
It was strange. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if any of you guys or anyone listening has ever been on like a sports team, but like when the coach is like trying to like ramp you up before like a game or something like that, and they're like, we're gonna kill it, this is the bet, like that's the kind of energy they tried to put out. But since it wasn't like a sports team, it just kind of came off weird.
Yeah, like the interview itself was like a class. Like it was a group interview session, and they would pretty much teach you about the company, and the way that they hired you wasn't based on your skills or what you could bring to the table. It was how well you could answer the questions that they asked about what they taught you. And then they would hire you on the spot, which is strange for most companies, especially to do like mass hirings on the spot. So then we go into training.
Everyone was unexperienced. Like everyone.
Yeah, they told us in the interview process that they specifically look for high school graduates, college students. So because we don't get a lot of like opportunities or whatever, and it's hard for us to get a first job. So they're like, we want to do this for you. But we later learned they probably want to do it for themselves.
For themselves.
That's crazy.
What happened in what's up with training, Kyle?
Training was just long as fuck, bro.
It's like 20 hours.
So long. So initial training was, I'd say the first day was probably from like 12 to 6 maybe? Something like that. And the next day was like 10 to 5:30. That's basically, you're learning about the company, you're learning about how to manipulate people into buying, these knives. And like, don't get us wrong, like these knives are
they're good knives. Like
like I'm not gonna shit on the product. I'm shitting on the
people
moral compass of this company. You know what I'm saying? All right, so like that's the first 2 days, and like the third day was just like long as shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like the big one with like everybody on it from like our division.
That was also like 5 hours. So right now we're at, for those of you counting along at home, we're at like 19 hours of training, and we got paid jack shit. We didn't get paid anything for training because they didn't pay us per hour.
I feel like jack shit has a greater monetary value than what we got paid. Like that's how little we got paid.
Matt, were you about to say something?
No, I've been yawning this entire time.
Oh, okay. So should we move on, or should we get to like the real meaty shit?
Let's get to the meaty shit.
Let's just get to the meaty shit. So let's talk about their guidelines for selling and the shit that my manager said to me. So first, their guidelines for selling. Kyle, you could talk a little bit about that. Like their criteria. Do you get paid if you don't sell within that, etc.?
Basically what our job was is we had to make appointments with people to show the knives. You know, if we weren't in a quarantine time, we'd be doing some door-to-door sales. But because of, Corona, everything was digital. So, that means Zoom appointments, FaceTimes, Skypes, mainly Zoom appointments. You had to read through the manual, basically say it word for word, You can only either sell to a wife or a husband and a wife. And as Juptej found out, if you don't sell to a wife, you won't get paid.
If a woman is not present during your presentation, you don't get money. So I remember there was this one appointment where I was on for like an hour and a half, and it was just a guy, and he was like very close to selling. It was my longest appointment, the hardest I've worked. And I call up my manager, and I'm like, yeah, he just didn't buy. And she's like, did you say he? I can't pay you for that. And I just about lost my shit. They also have to be like, what, over 30 and
over
working?
30, over 30, has a career.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Just stupid bullshit like that.
And like we're in, like I said, like a quarantine age show. So shit, affects everybody right now.
Yeah.
Not everybody the same way, but everyone kind of feels it. And on one meeting, our overall manager, who will remain nameless, basically was like, how many of you were told that they don't want to buy Cutco because, of the virus? So, of course, every single person raised their hand because the fucking coronavirus.
Yeah.
And he was like, anyone who said that they didn't buy anything because of the coronavirus, they're lying to you.
That's bullshit.
Fucking...
They were like, that's fucking bullshit.
And you ever just hear something so jarring that you're like, did I hear that right?
And like at first,
to me,
the way that they say it is so like convincing and manipulative. At first, I'm like, okay, like,
yeah, honestly.
And the way they say everything is like that. Like if you don't make a sale, they're like, fuck you and your whole family, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, they're like, if someone doesn't buy, it's not because they didn't buy, it's because you didn't sell.
It's because you're fucking worthless.
It's because you're worthless. They're like, one of my managers was like, you don't want to be the guy that is either not selling anything, sometimes selling, and then not selling, or I kid you not, he said, or even worse, just selling individual pieces. Which the fucked up thing about that is you can buy individual pieces. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
But they want it. They want us to like manipulate. They want us to manipulate the people we sell to by pretending that we don't know that they sell sets as well, or sell individual pieces. So they were like, while you're selling, keep talking about sets. Just keep saying set. And then when they ask, hey, do you sell individual pieces? Just go, do we sell individual pieces? Well, Kyle, we can sell individual pieces, but people don't usually do that. So I would recommend you just buy a set. Even though we know damn that's like word for word how we did it.
Literally
question.
Word for word.
Yes, Matthew.
What if someone wanted to buy an individual knife?
Like you can. Like you can do that. But they're like, fuck you if you do that.
Yeah. They're like it's literally nothing below $150 is worth our time because we get paid 10% commission, right? To start off with.
Yeah.
So and with the $15 base pay, you only make money if it's more than $15 or more than $150. But most of the knives cost like just under $150. So we literally just don't make money. We have to sell a set in order to make money.
And I don't even think we even explained it, but the $15 is not per hour. It's per appointments that you make.
Yeah. And they say that that's to protect our time, but it's really just to protect them so they can do as much bullshit training and hyping up the company as they want to, and they don't have to pay us shit. The big thing that they used, the big thing that they used to justify the whole COVID shit was, yeah, like if people tell you that their hours are being cut short or their pay is being cut short so they don't have much disposable income, that's bullshit. Because, let me ask you something. If they broke their flat screen TV or their $1,000 iPhone, what would they go and do? They'd buy a new one, right?
Literally that day. They'd buy it that day.
So you're telling me that they can't afford your knives? You're just not selling it right. And when we all heard that, we like froze and did not know how to respond.
Like I've never seen capitalism that close before. And it was so just disgusting. I was like, bro, these are people that were like manipulating into buying, like I said, admittedly good knives, but like one of these sets is over $1,000. We looked it up. If you want to get a flat screen TV, that's ranging from anywhere under $600. So a flat screen smart TV is cheaper than a full set of Cutco knives.
And also, most iPhones are cheaper than $1,000. True.
Exactly.
Most phones are cheaper than $1,000.
And I just love the notion that if someone breaks their iPhone, they'll get a new one.
They get a new phone.
Most people have like the Apple Care on it or some shit, or if they break their screen, they'll go and get it fixed. But they're like, nah, fuck that. Get a new one.
Literally, it's $50 to replace the cracked screen. It's less to replace a screen than most of the knives that Cutco sells. Like, let's just put that out there.
But that's bullshit, Kyle, and poverty doesn't exist.
Poverty does not exist. What's that?
No.
Poverty's a myth, actually.
Created by the iPhone manufacturers.
Created by Tim Cook himself.
Is that everything?
But I think,
really?
No, not yet. Not yet. We forgot about the one also important thing.
The recos?
So like I said earlier, no, not even the recos. Not the recos. The recruitment.
Oh, fuck me. Shit.
Yeah. So like I said, the way they get people is by, in training, like the first day of training, they're like, okay, go through your contacts. I don't care if it's anyone you haven't talked to in 5 years. I don't care if it's a random number. Put them in this thing and recruit them. And if you, like, based on the amount of people that you recruit, can get you things to, like, business trips to Cancun. And they tried to hype up this really big music festival in, like, August. And I was like,
that's not happening.
Is Corona over? Like, are we just going to music?
It's not over. It's just bullshit.
Yeah,
it never existed.
Exactly, and it's just weird to see people drinking the Kool-Aid so hard and not realizing how manipulative this is to not only like the customer but to like the employees. Yeah. Like, have y'all seen like Django?
Yeah.
They're all the Sam Jackson character. Every single one. Every single one of them. So imagine working with all of that. Like,
just
dog, it's the worst.
Like 5 Sam Jacksons.
Yeah, just working for 5 Sam Jacksons, and that already sounds
awful,
jarring. And but and then we quit, and we're like, nothing could be worse than Cutco. And then I remembered being black in America is worse than working for Cutco.
And then I remembered I was a minority.
And yeah. So why don't we talk about?
We get into that?
And not to make light out of this at all, but like, why don't we go into that?
Yeah. So yeah, that was the original purpose of the podcast. We were gonna make the whole podcast basically about Cutco. That's why we named it "Cutting All Ties," and then we realized "Cutting All Ties" had more meanings, and Cutco is not important at all. So now we're gonna get to the actually important things. First, let's talk about, well, not actually important. We talked about why we were gone for so long. We just stopped. There was another thing we wanted to talk about. Or was there? Oh, we're on Spotify now. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, thank you very much for supporting your boys at the Zero Budget Podcast. Now I think all the promo stuff is out of the way. I think all the dumb shit is out of the way. No? No, god damn it. Go ahead.
Listen, we're like morally obligated to.
Go ahead.
Me and Juptej have a friend named Joey. He's an upcoming YouTuber. If you like funny moments, if you like watching that kind of shit, check out Joe City on YouTube. I'm only saying this as an employee.
I too am an employee.
So take that bias into consideration. But I think some of the stuff is of decent quality. What was that?
The word you're looking for is slave, Matt.
Yeah, I am a slave.
No. You heard it here first, folks. On the Zero Budget Podcast. Live! Matthew Hanks is a slave. That's horrible. Oh my god.
Blink twice if you're being held captive by Joey.
Fuck me. Well, on that note, let's talk about racial tensions.
I think they're great.
Yeah, so if none of you were aware, the world is basically ending right now, like right outside of our windows. I don't know if you guys heard there's like a flu going around.
What's it called?
It's more like a common cold.
Common
really.
cold going around. Some people getting the sniffles.
Yeah.
We've also got, minorities being murdered.
It's fine.
Which also, hey, you're not allowed to make that joke. that is not your joke to make. Yeah, so which one do we want to talk about first? Maybe we should talk about Corona first, and then get into the stuff that we really, really care about.
Is there really anything new about COVID, really?
Yeah, I mean, it just exists.
People
now.
have well, it kind of feels like it doesn't exist anymore, especially with recent developments in things.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I've been going out more. Like I remember the first kind of 8 weeks, I stayed completely at home. I did not leave at all. And then graduation happened, so we had to go, and it was like this big place with a lot of people. We weren't all packed or anything, but generally there were more people than at home. And then after that, I went to someone's house for a graduation thing, and then a drive-by birthday thing. So it's kind of been piling up, and I've been more comfortable leaving the house, which is a bad thing. But I keep doing it. Thoughts, fellas?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't go out for the first few weeks. I was like, this is serious, by not going out, we're protecting, our loved ones and, other people who are, able to, get the virus. And like you said, more things started happening, more things, and all of a sudden, I feel like everyone just collectively was like, all right,
yeah,
let's
yeah,
the way they're trying to open up the state again, We started phase 1 like what, like
2 weeks ago, about.
2 weeks
2
ago?
weeks ago.
At least the southern part of Virginia did. Nova
Yeah,
just
at least
started
the
phase
southern
1.
part.
I mean, it seems like within the past couple of weeks, people have just been like,
Yeah.
okay, we're over it.
Well, I mean,
And
even
basically,
Disney has announced that they're going to be reopening Walt Disney Worlds in July under like some restrictions, i.e., people have to get their temperature checked before coming to the park. They got to wear masks. I think the park's going to have a limited capacity.
Well,
There's not going to be.
all of our regular listeners know the Zero Budget Podcast stance on Disney, which is evil and bad.
Yeah, but the park's pretty fun. I like the park. Listen, evil bad, but have you been to Star Wars Land?
Matt, blink twice if you're being held captive by Mickey Mouse right now.
Oh, sorry, there's some dust in my eye. Were you saying something?
Oh, no, I got everything I need.
Yeah. I mean, I think people are kind of just tired of being tired of Corona.
Yeah.
So they're just like, fuck it, if I die, I die.
The phrase
Which is
new
probably not
normal
phrase.
really creeps me out.
It sounds like some Orwellian shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you use new normal until like the new normal is there,
Yeah. I mean,
because then it seems
the
like
new
you're like
normal-
just setting it up.
Yeah, the new normal changes like from week to week. At this point, it's like,
Well, I think they mean like more like 9/11 stuff,
oh,
because like after 9/11 there was a new normal.
Yeah. I really.
So, like,
But
the
like
normal-
we didn't start saying
Yeah.
that until like 2003. Huh?
Yeah. I was saying that like. I was saying that like the new normal is more reactionary rather than in the moment, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And like honestly, like even just like to clarify, like have we been out with like a group of people like up their ass so close? Like no, but I think everybody is taking advantage of going to parks or going to beaches or taking drives. I mean, no one's just gonna. I mean, I'm sure someone will, but I think most people are not just going to be cooped up in their house for what
Months.
is this, like almost month 4 for us?
Yeah.
Like no.
Yeah.
Well, there is good
also-
news. Well, go ahead.
Also, I feel like another reason people are more inclined to going. I mean, the CDC only like last week said like, yeah, it's pretty unlikely you're gonna get COVID from touching surfaces. It's more from person-to-person contact. A lot of people are just kind of like, oh, I'll just stay away from people.
But
Yeah.
that worries me though, because before, I think everybody had kind of believed that touching surfaces like was one of the main ways to get it.
Mhm.
So is it like if you touch something then I touch something, that's unlikely, but if like we shake hands,
Yeah, it's more person-to-person contact. So
Okay,
if I like just like grabbed your face, I'm gonna get COVID.
because that's the thing that people do. The
That's
shaking,
the thing people do.
the shaking
what
hands thing wasn't
context?
good enough for you.
But yeah, if you like had COVID for whatever reason, and you touched like a cereal box in like the grocery store, and I touched that same cereal box, it's like unlikely that I would get it COVID through that means. Not impossible, mind you, just unlikely. It'd be more likely if I was like standing like 2 feet away from you and you started coughing, then I would probably get COVID.
Yeah. So, like I was saying earlier,
What was the good news?
there is good news. The spirit of Rosa Parks has risen, and is now with the coronavirus protesters, who are protesting what exactly?
Are they? I was about to say, are they even protesting anymore? Because I thought that was like more like a mid-April thing.
No, because now it's our turn. Now it's
But like
confused.
shooting at, so
Yeah.
like it's different. It's different.
yeah, but
I'm lost.
it's okay, Matt. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, okay, don't worry.
So the coronavirus protesters, they're not I don't think there's much of that going on anymore.
Well, most states have reopened or are doing
Yeah.
something similar.
But when they were going on, like, were they protesting the medical industry?
Well, there was kind of like three veins of COVID protesters. There was one which is kind of like, it ain't that deep, reopen. There was one that was like, it's inevitable, reopen. And then there was one that's just like, it's not real, open.
Mm.
They all wanted reopening, but they all kind of like had different views on COVID.
Yeah.
So some people thought it was still serious, but there was nothing you could do about it. So just reopen, which is probably the dumbest line of thought, personally.
Yeah.
Maybe besides that, it's not real. Now that I think about it, probably is the dumbest one. But yeah.
So, like, do they just think people aren't dying?
No, you're correct. That's
Literally,
exactly what they're thinking.
I've seen a lot of, like, whenever, like, big government officials or whatever make posts about Corona, I look in the replies, and they're pretty, like, significant camps of people that are asking, like, do you know anyone personally who has died from coronavirus? I'm like, yeah, multiple people. But it doesn't exist, I guess.
They're just
I don't know how you explain, like, the piles of bodies outside of morgues.
That's bullshit.
Crisis actors.
yeah. Like,
if those dead
They're
bodies,
dummies. They're mannequins.
if those bodies broke their flat screen TV or their $1,000 iPhone, what would they go and do? They'd find a cure for coronavirus.
Yeah.
and then they'd get that shit the next day, the absolute next day.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. If there was a vaccine for like COVID that was like safer, and there was just a lot of it tomorrow, I bet you my bottom dollar, which is about $1, that all these like fucking like anti-COVID people who don't think it exists would just rush right to their like petition and be like, "Shoot me up, daddy."
Oh God!
Oh wait, no.
There was no reason to
Well.
use any of those phrases.
Shoot me up, daddy.
Anyways, what do you think about Trump? God, I hate saying his name.
Existing?
Honestly.
Yeah, terrible.
Like I was talking about this earlier, but like I normally hate or not hate. I normally don't really fall into the bandwagon of like Trump bad, stupid, dumb boy. Everything he does awful and things like that.
Benjamin
Like,
bad.
I just hate talking about him, really. Like, saying his name is, like, Trump. But what do you think about him, like, deflecting the energy that should be going to him and the government for not, like, subsidizing the people staying home properly and kind
Or
of
doing
deflecting that
anything right.
off to the medical industry?
Predictable,
being like,
really.
it's them.
I mean, he's deflected anything that's not positive press ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unpredictable for obviously a politician to do that, but like it's like been like no like even like shadow of a doubt. He's always just like, no, that wasn't me, chief.
But I mean,
You know?
doing it to like doctors
This
in the
extent.
middle of
Oh.
a pandemic
Yeah.
is that's a new low.
You're not wrong.
But he can go
That's
lower.
what I'm saying.
and we'll
Even,
get to
like-
that later.
Yeah. Even like terrible Bush, like I mean, terrible presidents like Bush, you know, they deflected a lot. But I mean, like they're at least kind of just like, I don't know, maybe it was my fault. Trump's just like, no, it's the doctor's fault.
I feel like every time you think he can't find a new low,
Just keeps getting
here
there.
it is.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
I find Trump's approval ratings is always a fun thing to watch.
What's it at right now?
Because they've only hit up. It's like 42 probably.
Mm.
That's not very good. I think it's the lowest of any modern president.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Didn't he say something like this is average for this time in the presidency?
I'm just looking at 538 right now, and luckily they do compare presidents, especially at their certain day. So with Obama specifically, he's been probably, for better or worse, the most controversial president, at least when it comes to approval rating wise, in the past 4. I mean, even then, Obama was up 5 points on Trump. Bush around this time was a couple points above Trump. Clinton was 18 points above Trump, or something like that. He was like ridiculously high. H.W. Bush is the only president that had a worse approval rating around this time than Trump.
HW.
Every other modern president has done well.
Should we use this to segue into, race war?
No, I think we should have used my joke from earlier.
What was your joke from earlier?
No, I'm not gonna say it.
The one you're not allowed to make.
No, wait, which one was that?
We'll move on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The Zero Budget Podcast has officially been canceled.
Yeah.
Matt Hanks
one
is
half of it's
over
been
party.
canceled.
Yeah. So, should we talk about that a little
Yes.
bit before we get into the main
Oh,
event?
we're talking about the Lana Del Rey stuff.
Just a lot of the cancel culture shit. Because I don't know if either of you guys are on Twitter.
Not really, no.
But the trending page, every other day, has been someone new. Literally, it's always... I open trending page, one of the first things I see is blank is over party. I remember at one point they canceled Joji, Filthy Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw
years
that, but I didn't
after
look
he...
into it.
Yeah, it was his old YouTube channel. It was about Filthy Frank.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my god, Joji did this? Y'all didn't know?
Yeah,
I was like,
that's kind of whole
I think Joji raised... I wouldn't say raised, but I think he was such a big part of so many... of our generation's childhood. There was no one ever was like, wait, he did that? Everyone knows.
Okay.
So I think to bring up shit from 7 years ago, what is that doing?
Yeah.
It's nothing.
They canceled Shane Dawson again. Same shit.
Amazing.
That man is always getting canceled. I'm not that's not.
Yeah,
I
none of that is new. But
I don't care.
It always feels like they're always just looking for the next catch.
Yeah.
Almost.
Well, they caught a couple
And I
big
think
ones
that's-
recently.
Uh,
Lana Del Rey, Doja
yeah.
Cat, and who else was canceled? Biden. Lana Del Rey, Doja Cat, and Biden. Were
That is all the same day.
On the same
Yeah.
day.
I think the
3
Doja one
Musketeers.
was unnecessary. I think people were just mad she didn't show her tits.
I remember.
That's fair.
Yeah, people said that she said she was
Exactly.
gonna show. She said she was gonna show them if she got to number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Say So was number 1 on the Billboard, then she'd show her tits. And
And then it
she went
didn't,
on
so
live
people were
and
like, "You hate black people."
she was like, I played you, bro. And everyone was like, and then of course they were like, cool, let's find some shit on Doja Cat.
Yeah,
why
probably.
would a mixed person be racist against themselves?
Yeah,
I guess you could, theoretically, but come on now,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah,
Really?
I really don't know what happened with that whole situation. I just remember seeing the very next day, "We are sorry, Doja," trending, so that I was like, okay, it's over now, I guess. But no, people keep getting
Because
canceled.
they thought if they apologized, she'd show her tits. That I don't see.
Before we get
That's
into the
odd,
Biden
yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
since we're on the topic with Joe Biden, I don't know how his basement campaign is working, but I give him props. He's beating Trump in some of these key states, at least polling data wise. I mean, it's not very accurate because it's only May, but
I mean, he's got a
actually work.
podcast. We should get him on.
yeah. And that whole comment did nothing. That should have been candidacy ending, but everyone's just like, eh.
So let's talk Joe Biden. then. What did Joe Biden say?
Talk to Joe Biden. Would you like to say? Or you want me to say it?
Let's have Kyle say it. Our resident black.
Yeah. Nope. I don't think that's good.
as the resident black. Uh, so basically, he was like, "You're not black if you don't vote for me," which, in my opinion, like that's true, but he's not the one to say it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like he's not the one to say it. The whole black community knows that, and obviously, like, I guess that is a generalization. But at the end of the day, come on now, come on now. Like I feel like voting basically has to be people. Well, I guess after like 2016 in this election, a group of people just have to take a common L for the greater good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. Biden is kind of gross, but
Yeah,
Kind of.
He's off.
Trump is a figurehead. Like, even if it wasn't his intention, I don't give a shit. But he has become figurehead for hate and the right. I mean, tell me why people who were protesting against the virus were holding Trump flags.
Yeah, doesn't
You know,
matter.
I think they just really like the design of them. You know, the blue looks
Yeah.
nice. The white lettering is just
Like, that has nothing to do with what they're fighting for. But, like,
yeah.
they're like, well, if Trump's got our back, and at the end of the day, he does. Like remember in Charleston when he was like, those are some good people. You just legitimized hate groups.
Yeah,
Who legitimizes Nazis, bro?
actually, Kyle, funny enough, what you're describing is actually a real political campaign technique. I don't remember the exact name, but it's something base. Basically, it appeals to your like base really hard, so like you can get them excited and go get them to actually vote. Kind of something that Bernie did, but this mistake that Bernie and Trump I think are making is they are very overestimating how big their base is, especially at this current time. So like even though Trump voters are way more enthusiastic to go for Trump, they're much smaller than, let's say, Biden's camp, who are way less enthusiastic, but will definitely come out in bigger numbers to come vote for Biden.
The good people thing is funny because, I mean, in light of recent events, I posted this thing on my story, like a comparison of Trump's reaction of both of the riots, essentially. With the coronavirus stuff, the people that were protesting, I would argue, maybe not violently, but very aggressively about opening up the state and stuff. He tweeted about them saying that one of his advisors said that they were like the Rosa Parks of today, which is what I was referencing earlier. He said, you know, the governor should lighten up. He should give in a little bit. He should appease the people that are angry. These are very good people. And then with the Black Lives Matter protests that are going on, he said, fucking shoot him, dude. Fucking knock him
When
dead.
when the looting starts, the shooting starts.
Am I
I'm
right,
so-
ladies?
Very, very.
Comment, like, really, Rosa, they're like the same thing.
He said, you know what? Die, I guess? Like, I don't... He's like, I don't see any other possible solution other than kill him.
Did you see that one COVID protest where the protesters, you know, of course they had the Trump flags, but they all had like assault rifles and like rocket launchers and shit?
Yeah.
Like, if you are the face of a group that brings assault rifles to a protest against a fucking virus, what sense does that make, like, at all? Like who the fuck are they gonna shoot?
Well, admittedly, the reasons why they brought the AR, they were going to shoot the virus, but that would be kind of funny. No, they're definitely planning on like threatening the governor and like overthrowing. At least in Michigan, I know they're like threatening to overthrow the government in Michigan to reopen the state, acting like that would work.
And with them, they only... Yeah. With a lot of those protests, you only saw, like, normal cops. Maybe, like, a little bit militarized. Like, just...
Admittedly, in Michigan, they were not meant to storm the Capitol building. They were supposed to be outside. So,
Everything good there?
yeah, maybe. But as I was saying, I mean, it's not any less of not of a valid point, but maybe I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying they definitely were not meant to storm the Capitol building. So I'm very shocked that officers were not at least brought like a rifle with them.
I mean, but I'd say generally, like with these protesters, we've seen that they've just had regular ass cops, but then with the Black Lives Matter, it's interesting to make these parallels because then with the Black Lives Matter protests, tear gas, rubber bullets, water cannons.
Have they been using water cannons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, okay. I haven't seen anything of that yet.
Are we just protesters? Should we just talk about like the Black Lives Matter stuff now? We're already into it.
We'll just roll into it.
I think that's what we've been trying to talk about this whole time.
Yeah, we're already like that's what we've been like teasing. So we're in it now. Basically, let me just give a quick precursor. Those of you that don't know, the police don't happen to like melanin. So
that's crazy.
George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery Ahmaud Arbery was killed by
former DA investigator.
Ahmaud Arbery was killed by former investigator. Just hunted down on the street in broad daylight, and it took 2 months to get him anything resembling justice. Breonna Taylor was shot by police. I'm going to be honest, I don't really know that whole story.
I remember, because I mean, there was a lot of team in, I don't remember what state it was. It was in Louisville, I remember that much. The local news station in Louisville, they kind of did a piece about it, and like, because I mean, like, apparently one fact that was going on is that she was like sleeping in her bed, and that's where she got shot. Apparently that didn't happen. She was like in her living room or the hallway.
Which makes it better.
Presumably, yeah. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't make it, but it's not like she was just like, you know.
Yeah.
She was like at least awake. But
wasn't it like something like 7 shots?
Yeah, because her boyfriend, something. I'm just gonna call him Mr. Walker. He did have a right to carry. He had, I think, even a concealed permit carry. But he claims that he thought people were breaking into the house. It's a lot of he said, she said, because there's no body camera on this. The police claim that they knocked. Neighbors said they didn't hear anything. One officer got struck, so obviously Walker did fire, but we don't know who shot first. And what is presumably killed Breonna Taylor was the police made a very dumb decision, and I think they should get fired for that. They went outside and then shot through the windows with the blinds down, so they couldn't see anything. Yeah, no, you're correct. Now, whilst I don't think they necessarily hunted down Breonna, she died very innocently. It was not her fault. And I feel like it didn't have to end like that, because, you know, you don't shoot through a window you can't fucking see. That's just dumb. You know, they should be fired, and honestly, they should all be charged at that minimum manslaughter. Or like...
Yeah.
I don't know what else.
Something.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's just dumb. Bad.
At the very
a lot of
least,
this just
criminal negligence. Absolute criminal negligence.
Yeah, like... And yeah, I don't think unless the boyfriend did shoot first, I don't think he does deserve charges. Because if he did shoot first, it's more complicated, because then the officers maybe wouldn't have fired at all. Because they were there just for a search warrant. Because, you know, a whole, like, drug thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's just a messy situation.
Yeah. Well, that happened.
Yeah, that shit show happened.
And the third one, and the one that seems to be inciting the most passion in people because it's very cut and dry, is the tragic death of George Floyd, who the cop Derek Chauvin, some ugly name
Something
like
like
that, was kneeling on his neck with his full body weight on it as George Floyd repeatedly said, "I can't breathe," asked for his mother. It's an awful, awful video. And two cops helped Derek hold him down, and one cop helped keep the crowd back. No one told the guy, "Hey, maybe stop fucking doing that." And eventually,
Well, then the officers told him.
yeah, there was like a crowd started forming. There was even like a firefighter there that was like, check his pulse. He had passed out at one point, but that didn't stop the cops. Stayed on his neck until an ambulance came, and then he was eventually pronounced dead.
Yeah.
So,
I'd also like to say that there are so many other numerous tragic deaths like this that happen every single day, every single week, everywhere.
Yeah.
It just kind of seems like Joe, I was telling you this the other day, like it seems like it happens often, but the media only covers, them in waves, like this, like I said, this happens every day, but like when was the last time you really had a wave of media coverage of police brutality?
Yeah.
Like it's been a few months, but all within like the past 2 weeks, Ahmaud, Breonna, George, you know what I'm saying? Like, this isn't rare, This happens all the time.
And I think a very important thing to point out is for the people that want to pull the statistics, because we've seen a little bit of that. People that
I'm laughing for all the wrong reasons.
People that want to pull out these statistics and be like, actually, it's an anomaly that this is happening. I would just like to remind you that fuck.
Black people should not be mad because they're unlikely to get shot. You see, only 17 unarmed black men were killed last year. Guys, that's a success.
For those of you listening at home, Matt is just doing an impression. This is not the real voice of
That's
Matt
not my
Banks.
actual viewpoint.
Yeah, so I think it's very important to note that without these videos, the statements from the police are extremely misleading at worst, or at best, and absolute dead wrong lies at worst. Because the statement around George Floyd, when it first happened, was, they went there to arrest him for like forgery or something, or to investigate that, and then there was some sort of like medical mishap, at which point he passed away. Like they said, like he struggled or something. There was a medical situation that happened. He was sent in an ambulance and he passed away. It was only after we saw that video that we knew that they left out a lot of details, and that the medical mishap was a man suffocating, choking to death.
Yeah, at least in some positive news. I saw this like yesterday, and it's, I think, relevant. The police chief of Chattanooga, Tennessee, came out. I'm not sure how to pronounce that city's name.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
You're right. Chattanooga.
Oh, okay, good. He came out and he was just like, yeah, if any of my officers thought what happened to George Floyd is all right, or anything that's like not bad, you can turn in your badge now. And like, low key, that's just the people that need to be in charge, especially in police. Because that's the attitude you need. Just kind of like, I'm not taking this bullshit anymore,
Yeah.
And I think, I even saw on Reddit a lot of this one officer literally after I think a couple days after George Floyd's death, he was like, yeah, I like put in my letter of resignation because I'm kind of just like sick and tired of like this profession. It's like I may go back in if it ever gets better, but like right now I just need a break.
Those are
I think
I was just kind of
there are more good cops than bad.
Well,
I'd like
actually,
to preference that there are more good
yeah.
cops than bad, but there.
I think for every
What are you saying?
for every like one bad cop, I would argue about like maybe 15 good ones. You know, maybe even more.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
But I remember my friend Jonathan, who wants to go into, he wants to become an investigator, but become an investigator, you have to become a police officer first. Let's just have to kind of go through the steps. He took like a criminal justice class, and he told me there are apparently like three that officers go through. There's the meat eaters, who are, you know, the bad ones that we generally call them. There are the grass eaters, who are like cops who are just doing their job, but they don't really call out the meat eaters. Mm-hmm. And then there's the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts are the very like kind of like, I'm not taking shit from anyone. That includes people from my own department. You know, if I see you doing something wrong, I'm going to report you. Well, the issue is we call them Boy Scouts, right? Because they're, you know, please call them snitches. And what has happened, especially in the past, basically ever since really the drug war, it's really been heightened, is that there's been this them versus us mentality. And because I mean, like, since, you know, the drug war, let's say, has been not the most peaceful war in existence, officers feel like it really is them versus the world at points. So if you're like a snitch, you know, you're not really part of us, you're kind of like with them, you know, and, you know, it's not, people don't want to be that outsider. So a big thing that really needs to change, it seems like, is, you know, improving, let's say, the attitude of officers, or breaking down that barrier of it's not really them, it shouldn't be a them versus us kind of thing, you know. In all instances, they really should be us.
Yeah.
You know, people should not have to be afraid to call the police, you know, and that's the bottom line.
And in the chat, we have people chiming in. We got TJ. She says Kyle has that same sad, angry, distant stare that I had talking to my friends yesterday. And she also says, 100% agree. I feel that not killing people does not equal good cops. The cops that call out their peers are the good ones. And I would 100% agree with that. I think what you were talking about with the meat eaters, grass eaters, and the Boy Scouts, there are way too many grass eaters.
That is really the issue. But like I would say, 95% of like good cops, aka people doing their jobs, are grass eaters. They're just too afraid of that peer pressure almost, you know.
In my line of work, we call them bitches.
Yeah. But I mean, it also comes a lot down to their training and education. And unfortunately, their training and education is bad because they don't have money. A lot of departments do not really have that much money. That's why a lot of them don't have like less than lethal forces a lot of the times. You know, it's a lot of places usually just have like your service weapon and then your taser, and that's it. and so then they're usually trained how to use those, and then not how to use like less than lethal like takedown maneuvers and stuff. You know, so that's also a whole other issue. You know. So then you get just people who just know how to use like lethal force or know how to use a taser, and that's about it.
I also want to say real quick, this is an incredibly nuanced, complicated, deep topic. So we're definitely going to have some bad takes here, or some less than educated takes. So don't cancel us. This is the official statement from the Zero Budget Podcast. Don't cancel us.
We can only ever speak from, I think, our own experiences / knowledge, you know?
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's just kind of the stuff that I know.
And that's kind of one of the points of this podcast is, like, we're stupid. Like, we're fucking idiots.
Yeah.
We're just people that look at the world and want to talk about it. And I think through talking about it, I don't like people that shut down discussions. And I feel like discussions are the only way to like really learn more about how the world works and just kind of figure out what exactly you're looking at. And I think especially with something like what's going on right now with the rioting and the some of the calls of violence from the higher ups, we're in a really weird state right now. And I just think that whatever we got on our minds, like, we just have to talk about it. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to interject.
I think that so don't get me wrong. I care. As a black man, this hits very close to home. But the thing is, this is like the 12th time this has hit close to home. You know, so I feel like a lot of my peers are starting to, you know, see the world through the lens that we've always seen it at. So, you know, it's just such a pain that we've felt so many times before. And I'll tell a quick story. I was in an accident a few months ago. I was hit by a car. Everyone is okay, obviously, but I was driving my dad's car, and my dad, you know, has a license to carry, but he had a gun holster in his car, right? And when I got hit, the officer was like, "Where's the gun?" And
fuck.
As a black man, when you hear that, your heart just sinks. Because you can be on the straight and narrow. You can be, you know, the most clean-cut black person of color. You can do everything by the book. And that changes nothing. Like, at all. And I think, I won't say issue, but I think the real thing that kind of upsets me is more of the reaction from people over this issue. Obviously, you can't change if you don't know. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people are having their eyes opened, but I can't help but be like, where were you when it was Eric Garner? Where were you when it was Sandra Bland? Where were you when it was, you know, Trayvon? You know, I think I said something along the lines that was use the hashtags, post your tweets, say whatever you want to say, but where are you going to be 2 months from now? I think our generation is very much like, what is TikTok telling? TikTok influences their political views.
Yeah.
And that should not be the case. That's how platforms work. But think for yourself. Don't just have this be something to get riled up over while you're in quarantine. 2 months from now, you know, for those who can vote. For those who can't, educate yourself, teach others. Because if 2 months from now, and you know, you are not a person of color, and you go back to, you know, not thinking about it, or even worse, just casually saying the N-word, you know, shit like that, little things like that, then you're just more a part of the problem, because you're just saying that shit. You're not talking about it. You'll be fine 2 months from now. I'll still be a target.
Mm-hmm.
Jup will still be a target.
Mm-hmm.
It changes nothing for us. This does not change for us. So, I don't know.
It's something that you mentioned that kind of just, when you asked where you were, Eric Gardner or Sandra Bland, I've come to think we were all teenagers when that kind of stuff happened.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of seeing those people grow up and now actually have the power to do things, if that makes sense, about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you're seeing now, you know? People who grew up with it, seeing the injustice, are now able to react to it. And I think that's why you're seeing such a more, let's say, like violent reaction and such a more cathartic reaction, both on social media and just at protests or whatever, you know. Which kind of makes me optimistic in a sense, because I think it shows that things definitely can change for the better. And I mean, I kind of pride myself in being an optimist, especially in harder times, because I think not everyone can do it. But I really think, even though it may be a rough next week, especially for some cities and their buildings, I think it will definitely, I guess, be good for the overall people. I was kind of rambling there, but
we have a couple things in the chat here.
Yeah.
Benji_theater says, what I think makes these protests different from others is that the police don't only attack the protesters, but they have started to attack the media. The CNN reporter being arrested, the Louisville reporters getting shot at with rubber bullets. Kira says, don't throw out statistics if you don't have them confirmed. I think that was referencing like where we started talking about how many cops are like quote unquote good versus bad. Yeah, that's our bad on that one. And when we were talking about discussing is the only way to learn, she said, I'd argue that's not true. You can always educate yourself to learn more and better what you already know. So important now more than ever to stay educated. I would agree with that. The thing that I was kind of trying to say there was like, I just think I think open discussions are ways that we can learn from others' experiences, kind of, because especially something like this, it's very anecdotal and very personal to a lot of people. I mean, again, like you can throw out statistics about these are how many people were killed each year, but there are no statistics for how many people are like, where's the gun? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the discussion and listening to the discussion and hearing what minorities and black people have to say and being allowed to openly talk about it is one of the most important things, as well as staying informed, staying educated, being up to date. So that's kind of what I was trying to say.
I think that like empathy is great. Empathy is fine and good, but that's the first step. You know, first comes empathy, but action has to come next. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like I said, post your posts, post your hashtags, but if you don't try and change anything, then I think as a result you're still a part of the problem. Like, not everybody's perfect, don't get me wrong. You know, like I probably won't necessarily be at one of these rallies, but I feel like just existing and teaching the gospel and educating people and you know, that in and of itself is making a change. Like, you don't necessarily have to be on the front lines to make a change, but even just having the conversations with people. Like, I know so many people who were like, yeah, I was a part of the problem, and I'm like, you think? But even if it's just, and I really hope it's not just for the time being, I hope this is something that sits with them and you know, goes with them for the rest of their life. But if even if something makes you have that kind of realization, then someone is doing their job. If maybe George Floyd, like maybe all these deaths had to happen in a sense for change to come, you know?
Yeah,
that goes for every single person of color who was unjustly killed. If you want to look at it in an optimistic view, their death led to change.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I was going to say another, I guess, positive consequences. I mean, this is going to inevitably have to come up in the election cycle, especially when debates start coming up. And it's not going to be a question that they can just dodge, you know? Because it's something they've already both obviously commented on, both Biden and Trump. But I mean, I have a very sneaky suspicion this is going to come back in September, October, and November, especially with, you know, criminal justice reforms, because this does not seem like it's going to be going away anytime soon. You know, we're seeing kind of like the cathartic release of it. That makes sense. you know. But after that, everyone's gonna kind of just sit down and be like, okay, what now? And that's when discussions are going to start.
Well, I would argue that
that's
discussions have started and are starting. I mean, you see through the riots. I think now more than ever, like, this is one of like the best times to kind of rise up, because I mean, Twitter is like, I know like Twitter's awful, but it's also such an open platform to discuss, and we've been seeing a lot of like higher officials discussing for better and for worse. So for worse, we've seen like Trump talk about murder him, but then for better, we've also seen I think the governor of Minnesota, talking about people are for and against the riots, but he was just like, okay, this has to lead to actual systemic change, and not just like more destruction. Which, whether or not you agree with the riots, I mean, that's just truth.
It's an agreement. It's just true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of seems, if you're like destroying things and it doesn't really lead to things, you know, it seems like it's almost in vain. You know.
And I think admitting fault is such a hard and painful thing to do, but people need to see it. I was talking to Jupp last night about Emmett Till. When his photo was shown in newspapers, and you just saw just the visceral destruction of this 14-year-old black boy, you know, most people with a heart and a conscience cannot just look at that and be like, good. You know, like, that has to change something in you. And, you know, and showing that photo led to the civil rights movement and helped get that, you know, traction. Mm-hmm. So people need to see, you know, officers with their black men's.
Oh no, it froze. I'm so sad.
Okay. Like I remember when this first happened, I was really kind of taken back by why Instagram was being like, ooh, like, you know that shit where like there's something that's like violent or something, and they have to like, they don't want to show it at first, so the person has to accept and see it. Mm-hmm. They're just doing such a disservice. Like why not show it? Who cares? Who gives a fuck if you are uncomfortable?
May I say, it's not for uncomfortable reasons. It's probably for children. I'm pretty sure that's why they usually do that kind of stuff.
Fair.
Also, Jupp, if I may, earlier when I meant discussions, I meant with like policymakers. Mm-hmm. So like people in Congress.
Yeah. I don't know what I was gonna say, but there are a couple things in the chat that I wanted to bring up. TJ says, Sandra Bland hit my family so hard. I will never forget the pain my mom went through. Sandra Bland was in the same sorority my mom is in. And when you're in a sorority, those women are your sisters. So my mom legitimately lost a sister when Sandra Bland was murdered. That is awful.
Yeah.
It's just awful. Like, TJ also says they should be uncomfortable. If you're not, you are a part of the problem. And that's something that I wholeheartedly agree with. I think discussions like this, videos like this, protests like this are uncomfortable, scary, and very emotional for a lot of people. And I think that is exactly the way that they should be. Because if you're not invested, then what are we doing here? Mm-hmm. Like if seeing that video of George Floyd just pleading for like 8 minutes straight, telling this like human pile of shit on his neck, saying he can't breathe, crying for his mom, if seeing that doesn't light up anything in you, if seeing Ahmaud Arbery being hunted down by two white men doesn't light up anything in you if hearing the President of the United States basically say, he said when the looting starts, the shooting starts, saying to kill the rioters. If that doesn't do anything for you, then, and this is going to be horrible, but we don't want you on our side.
Yeah. Funny enough, actually, the governor of Maryland, who is Republican, actually kind of made that exact same point, only with the Trump tweet, admittedly. But he was like, Mr. President, don't say you're going to shoot looters. That's like the worst thing ever.
Don't say that, maybe.
Yeah, probably just like don't shoot your citizens real quick for a hot second. That'd be appreciated. It's so like r/the Donald doesn't exist anymore, right? It basically got deleted off Reddit, but they went to make their own website, and watching it is probably like the most frustrating thing, because they're not all like, they're definitely not saying like Floyd's death was like either fake or like bad. But I don't know, it's just your typical right-wing stuff, I guess.
I wonder if there are, and if they're not, there should be, but I wonder if there's, support groups for people during this time. Because, like I said, like, even if you're not the one being slain on the streets, like, this is a trauma and fear that so many people live with just going out to the grocery store. Like, you don't know if you're gonna make it back. And it's like, wow, how can you think that way? But that's the reality, One wrong move and it's done. Like it's so serious. And even if we don't, make that fear public, if we're not like looking over our shoulder all the time, that's a fear that we feel in our hearts. And no one should feel that. Not at all.
I think most sane people would agree with you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm at a point where like I don't even know what to say anymore. Like I'm not even thinking about, we're doing a show, we need to keep the conversation moving. I'm just like, I'm just so like I've had like a knot in my stomach the entire time we've talked about this, because I started thinking about some of my own experiences with police and like cops at school, cops showing up to my dad's store, cops pulling us over and things like that. And it's I remember one time we were going to Ohio and we were in like this country ass highway, and this cop had already pulled over someone else, and we were trying to get out of the way, go into the other lane like you're supposed to do, and no one was letting us go, so we didn't really make it in time, but we still did go over to the other lane. But then that cop pulled us over, and I remember at first my dad was like, listen, I'm sorry, we were trying to go to the other lane, we couldn't go. And then the cop said, are you trying to kill my officers? And my heart sank. Everybody else in the car got quiet, but my dad got pissed. He was like, what are you talking about? I wanted to go to the other lane, but they wouldn't let us. And my mom was like holding my dad's like arm and stuff, and just going like, it's okay. And my dad was just like, and I was just like, okay, no, we weren't trying to do that. I don't know, like the reason I bring that up is because just like remembering that, and remembering like how everyone in the car was like frozen, and we all kind of wanted my dad to just submit. You know what I mean? Like this guy had like basically accused him of almost
Attempted murder.
like, yeah, basically he was just like, are you trying to kill my officers? So my dad should have been rightfully mad, because no the fuck he isn't. But we were just like, nah bro, come on, like, apologize.
It's very frustrating because this is about to be a total tonal shift, but police officers who aren't like real police officers, I think, are the worst. Like Metro police officers. Now this is like a very different story, but it actually kind of has a similar tone. And I remember we were dropping my girlfriend's sister off at the Metro, and there was this car that stopped in front of us, and we were like, okay, we could just let you off here. It was technically at intersection, but there was this red light, and she just quickly got out, and then these Metro officers came and flashed their lights, and they were like, are you trying to cause an accident? And I was so tempted to be like, bro, it was a red light, chill the fuck out. And then my girlfriend has like really bad anxiety, so she kind of just froze when she got pulled over. And kind of the bottom line of this story is just like, it's really hard to teach people how to use their authority correctly, because I think there's a way, it's kind of like good teachers and bad teachers, because teachers have authority over students, right? And some teachers are absolute bitches, no one likes them. But they tend sometimes to be the most effective, at least shutting up the class. Comparatively to nicer teachers who still have authority over the class, but are a bit more chill, And I feel like that's kind of, police officers are just like the bitchy teachers a lot, in your case, Juptej, where you're just like, were you trying to get my officers killed? That sounds just like something like a gym teacher would say.
Yeah. Except this gym teacher
and that's,
has a gun.
I was going to say he has a gun.
Yeah. Also, if I may, I just want to say that I think our experiences of fear, while we may have acted on them in the same way, were rooted in very different experiences and different perspectives.
Yeah.
So yeah, like while you said your girlfriend has anxiety and like you might have frozen up just because there's a police officer there, your worst case scenario would be, I don't want to argue with him, get arrested, maybe get a bigger ticket. While for us in the back roads of Ohio, or really anywhere in the like dead of the night, our worst case scenario is, I don't want this cop to pull a gun on my father.
Yeah.
And like most likely worst case scenario is kind of what I'm saying. So, I think that's one of the most important things to realize is like a lot of white people. I'm not saying you're like, trying to be a bitch or anything, but like a lot of white people, they'll equate their experiences with police to a minority's experience with police when they're rooted in very entirely different experiences. Like they'll be like, I got pulled over, I'm afraid of the cops. And it's like, okay, sure, you can be afraid of the cops, but our reasons for being afraid of the police and our experiences with the police are not the same. And I think recognizing that, kind of like we were talking about white privilege like earlier, it's not about saying that, all white people have it good. That's not what talking about white privilege is about. What it's about is recognizing that generally, one white person, one minority in the same situation, one of them would have an easier time. Where was I trying to go with that? Kyle, if you could bounce off me. I forgot where I started.
Yeah, like I think if you get pulled over by a police officer and there's not even a remote fear that you're not going to make it home, that's white privilege.
TJ says, I'm going to be honest. Also, yeah, Kira had mentioned earlier, she said, that's your privilege talking, bro. And I asked her to clarify like what she meant by that, but I think because of lag, I got to it a little late. But then TJ said, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what Kira was trying to say. But yeah, Matthew, I understand you trying to empathize with us. But honestly, you can't and you won't really be able to. And like, if I could kind of speak more to that, I think just what that means is we just will not be able to understand each other's experiences. And that's just kind of like where that
that's fair.
Like, I won't be able to understand your, like, not even just with the police, but like generally, like,
in life.
Yeah, like, our perspectives are kind of rooted into who we are. So like, I as a minority, or I as a Sikh, Kyle as a black man, you as a white man, we all view the world, the country, our lives in a very different way. And I think with something like the police, a lot of minorities, a lot of the black community is kind of united by our experiences. And it might seem like it's like discriminatory almost, but it's just we just don't share the same experiences. And we appreciate that we're like fighting together, but it's never gonna be like, you're never really gonna get it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's just in the same way you would not understand my experience in like the education system.
Yeah.
Because you have normal brain, I got op brain.
Yeah.
Our experiences are not going to be the exact same. I had to jump through like loopholes to make sure I didn't get into like thrown into special ed when I was in kindergarten. So like, I understand. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think in another vein, I think it's kind of like the inward conversation. I had a conversation with someone, and they were like, why should you say it? They were like, if it's so bad, why do you say it? And, for a while I didn't. Growing up, I didn't. But, once you kind of get into the culture, that's just a part of the vernacular. As a black artist, I'm not saying you have to say it, but I think it's something that is there. Like I said, like, you don't have to, but it's there, and the reason why they can never say it. Wow, this is gonna definitely be a little bit of a hot take. That word was used to oppress people for so long. Like it was a word of hate, and to a certain degree, like it's still there. But I think the thing about black culture is that, we take the scraps that are given to us and we make something beautiful out of it. You know what I'm saying? We have made the word term of endearment. It means friend, it means brother, it means so many things. So yes, the history of the word is still there, but it's ours. And yes, it's discriminatory. Like, yes, it is, but it's I don't know. I think the way to really, I guess, get peace is to understand others' differences. You don't have to compare. You don't have to change each other's differences. But if you just acknowledge it and you just let people kind of, and not even separate, not separate, together. But if you just acknowledge that everyone is different, there's no hostility.
Yeah.
Like if a white person, and there are white people who do this, but when you admit, when you can say, yes, I have easier access to things than you do. That's the first step. That is the first step. You know? And now, where does that conversation lead to? So if you have the mindset like, no, like it's not different for me because, you know, my mom was a teacher and we had 5 siblings in a trailer park, you know, that's a reference I'm not going to get into. But like, you know, like if you try to, like, you know, just ignore someone's whole existence, you're adding to the problem. Like it's like we were talking about yesterday about, you know, how South Africa, you know, dealt with post-apartheid. You know, everybody just has to have accountability. Yeah, that goes for some of the black community too. You know, it's there. You know, we're not saying our community is perfect, but we deserve respect. We deserve to be treated the way that you would be treated. You know, Jup's culture deserves to be treated the way you would be treated. Hispanics, Asians, Native Americans, everybody just deserves the respect. You know, it doesn't...
Yeah. TJ says, the reason it's so frustrating for me... she said this to her friend. The reason it's so frustrating to me for you to say the N-word is because everyone is first in line to take what they want from the black community, including the N-word, but will never fight for our lives. You want our hair and body and athleticism, but won't fight for our right to live.
Fuck. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's fair.
Absolutely.
An agreeable statement.
I mean, most people are like that. Like, it's
yeah.
I mean, I can't speak for the black community, obviously, but from a lot of the culture now is rooted around black culture, right? Like that sort of like quote unquote hip hop culture. But when it comes to fighting the good fight, a lot of the people that are taking that culture are now all of a sudden silent.
Black culture is responsible for the American culture. We are responsible for jazz. We're responsible for rock and roll. We're responsible for hip hop. We're responsible for trends, style, art. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, we are so ingrained in the American experience. So, you know, for basically what you're telling us is the only way for a black man to have any respect is to make him laugh or make him dance, right? Goes back to like the whole step and fetch it thing. You know, you have to pretend to be like, oh yes sir, yes massa. You know, you have to put on that front to even like it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because no one would do that for anyone, and no one's asking you to. But you have to put on a front, you know? Like, everyone has a code switch. You know, code switching is when you change how you talk, how you stand, how you do things based on, you know, the group that you're around. So,
sorry to bother you, the white voice.
Exactly, the white voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Because you're telling me if I was at, like, Oshkosh Bagosh, and I was like, yeah, nah, this shit's tight. Or if I just said some shit like super like with bass in my voice, and I said it the way like I'm even doing it kind of now, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm raising my voice to not sound like the angry black man. Mm-hmm. But if I talk like this, you'd be like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, when I was listening to like older podcasts, I mean, I've done it this entire time, but like my voice is much higher, like it's up here, and I'm articulating everything I'm saying, but then like when I'm on FaceTime with you, I'm like, bro, this shit's
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Should we talk about I know this is something that we kind of got into yesterday. We had like a meeting last night to discuss the podcast. And we had to stop ourselves from going down so many rabbit holes just so we could save this conversation for now. But should we kind of talk about...
Also, just to let you know, It's like 4:30, so
Oh shit, you're right. How long did we say we would do this?
max 2 hours.
Max 2 hours. Okay, so maybe let's get into like a final topic and then close it out.
Yeah.
Right? Do you guys want to talk about like white guilt, white apologism, or do you guys want to talk about the riots? I feel like we already talked about white guilt.
Not
Basically-
specifically.
Basically,
About
white
the
people
riots.
like
Yeah.
I think our thoughts on white guilt can basically just be, white people, you don't need to apologize for like slavery or like civil rights, but if you kind of the same thing we were talking about with after post-apartheid South Africa, and Dave Chappelle says this, and I repeat this a lot. It's like any way that you benefited from the system, everybody needs to come forward and admit. Or any way you exploited the system, everybody needs to come forward and admit it, and that's the only way we can change the system. Which is why I'm so like adamant on white people recognizing white privilege, because that is a way that you benefit. It's not intentional and it's not malicious, but it's there. Kyle, you got anything to add to that?
100%, yeah. I live in a pretty, I wouldn't say rural, kind of a mix of rural and very suburban, like right outside of Richmond. So although there is a very like diverse population, for the longest time I was the only black kid in a class. Every now and then I still am. So, whenever there's a history class and we get to the slavery point, everyone's just like, like that's such a thing that's there. Like you said, you don't have to apologize for slavery. You don't have to apologize for what, your dad said 20 years ago. Like people are human. But if you want to see the change, be the change. Don't just post the hashtags. Don't just put a Black Lives Matter fist in your profile picture because TikTok told you to. Educate yourself. And that's the thing I'm genuinely kind of afraid of. I am genuinely afraid of that this shit is gonna pass, and no one would have learned anything.
TJ says, I got pulled over once when I first got my license because of my lights, and my white friend was in the car with me. It was late at night after work and no one was around. She's probably going to continue that. I probably read it too early. Oopsie doopsie. Oh, she said, I'm scared to think what would have happened if she wasn't in the passenger seat. That's something we kind of talk about is where we talk about weaponizing your white privilege. That sounds very radical and extreme, but all it means is use your whiteness to help. Be an ally. Be a vocal ally. Be an active ally.
Unfortunately, I think some people have also used that as an excuse just to break shit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's kind of what I wanted to get into with the riots.
Yeah.
Is we saw a lot of Antifa members, a lot of white people who were trying to be leaders of the movement, who are misreading the movement, misreading what minorities want, misreading the entire situation, and just leading directly to breaking shit.
Yeah, like I heard last night that one of the buses in Richmond just got burned, and I'm kind of just thinking like, what is the point of that?
I wanna talk about Target really quick because that whole thing was going around. So apparently the situation there, this is from like people who claim that they were at the riots. The situation there was the protest was entirely non-violent, non-destructional at first. But even with that, of course, it's aggressive, it's angry, it's a protest. The police started shooting rubber bullets into the crowd and throwing tear gas because it was aggressive and angry. So the tear gas, one of the things to dissipate that, to help ease that pain, people use milk and water. So they went into Target to try to buy jugs and bottles of milk and water. But Target started refusing to sell. So people just started taking them. And then, of course, cops get more involved there, protesters get more riled up, Target burns down.
This sounds a lot like something I learned in my conflict analysis class, which is called the structural change model. That's actually almost a perfect definition. Basically, it just means when like two parties, multiple parties really, change their tactics, and it's just also known as escalation. So, i.e., police throw tear gas at protesters. Protesters go to Target to get shit. Target stops selling things. Things escalate now because now they're just going to steal the water, and then some people misinterpret this shit, and then they escalate even further by just stealing more shit and burning it down, and then police escalate it again by even getting more aggressive, and then the structure changes each time one of the parties does something that's different or more heavy than the last. So
one of the things
it makes
that
sense,
I
though.
definitely don't agree with is Antifa and white protesters hijacking the movement. Antifa's been using it as an excuse to loot and destroy small businesses, which I don't agree with, because small businesses are self-run. Like Target, it's a corporation. Fuck them.
Yeah.
But small businesses, that's like a family that you're ruining, in my opinion. And also, I saw a bunch of videos. I saw this one fucking video of this guy pulled up in this car to one of the protests in Minneapolis, and he's looking around. He's like, he's kind of like, what's happening here? And this white dude pulls up to the car. He's like, yo, park your car right here, or some shit like that, or get the fuck out of here. He's like, I'm trying to support you. What's going on here? And this white dude's like, park your car right here and get out. And then the dude's like, no, like I'm not going to do that. And then he's like, why? Do you care about possessions more than you care about human lives? And the white guy's like, what? And then the guy outside of the car goes, get the fuck out of here, man. And it's like, what are you talking about, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
Darian just provided context for the bus. That bus was burned because the company shut down regular stops in black communities to make for faster transportation through the more affluent areas of the city. And the company also violated a lot of CDC regulations and warnings in the past with requiring employees to come into work without proper protection. So the burning of the bus was more symbolic in that instance. TJ also says, don't forget how ambulances refuse to help people and protesters who were hurt during the protest. The lack of care that is given to our citizens is astronomical.
I'll say this. The protests stem from police violence, but it is so much more than that.
Yeah.
Like, even in just those comments that, were just shared, it's about how, these communities are not being supported by the government, by healthcare providers. Like, black women are more statistically likely to, die because doctors don't believe, what they say. No one should go to the doctor and the doctor be like, nah, just take an Advil, and they fucking die for it. You know what I'm saying? The police brutality was the catalyst, but this is the product of years of hate and neglect and mistreatment of the black community. And I'm seeing so many people who are like, yeah, like George Floyd should not have died, but no. Yes, looting is wrong and terrible. Don't do it. But ask yourself why they have to loot. Why they are looting. Should you go out and be fucking stealing TVs from fucking Target? What the fuck? No. But even in Richmond, like there are some parts of the city that do not have access to grocery stores. So they have to build grocery stores so people have access to fresh fruit, fresh meat, fresh produce. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so some of these people can't even fathom not having like a fucking Chipotle. You know, I'm privileged, you're privileged, Jup, you're privileged. But at the same time, there is such a vast amount of people that are not and are being ignored every single day. And the only way for the people to be heard is to, unfortunately, kind of fuck shit up.
Now, only if we had a candidate that was in the civil rights movement, but I guess that's only a dream.
Yeah.
No candidate would ever exist like that.
No.
That's crazy.
I guess I'll say like one last thing. I
Yeah.
think black artists have the biggest megaphone right now. And I keep on like specifically saying black artists, but I think artists in general, of all colors, of all nationalities, of all genders, of all sexual orientations, I think the world is in such a divide right now that you should use your platform to tell the stories, shed the light, educate the people, because, you know, get on your soapbox, dude, because people will listen. I know it seems like people won't listen, but they fucking will if you have something to say. If you're going out and just, like, spewing out nonsense, no one's gonna fucking listen.
Mm-hmm.
Should we make
We have
closing statements?
so much shit. Yeah.
All right. Kyle, was that yours, or did you have one more thing you wanted to add?
I don't know. I guess thanks you for having me on this podcast.
We'll get to that in a bit. We'll get to that in a bit.
Okay.
Closing statements on this topic right now. I think
I'm done.
I would say let the black community have their voice, and I think that also goes for other minorities, like including myself. I would say, like I think my minorities who kind of like group themselves in some sense aren't that different from the All Lives Matter people, because it's like okay, yeah, a lot of our struggles are the same and we do go through the same things, but I think right now it's about standing with the black community and not being like, yes, the black community, but also we struggle, or also, you know what I mean? I would say let the black community be their own leaders, and we just kind of have to follow along and support and rally. Yeah. Mr. Hanks.
Fire's so scary.
Fires are
That's it, that's all.
scary. You greasy.
No, I don't have anything.
Fire bad.
I don't have anything that you two haven't seen. So I'm just gonna have to agree.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so now we're at like the 1 hour 48 minute mark. So we'll go to kind of the end, I guess. I like having another minority on here. Let me say that. Because then people think Matt is evil and
Yep, grr.
wrong.
I like this little Oreo thing we got going on right now.
Kyle, you are a wonderful, amazing musician. You got something coming out in the future. Anything you want to promote, floor is yours.
All right. So for those who don't know, I guess my real name is Kyle, but I go by KJ Dawson. Yeah, I'm releasing an album in July. It's called Who We Are on the Other Side. A lot of really talented artists have helped me out with it. I'm really proud of it. Can't wait to hear it. I guess follow all of my socials. My Instagram is the KJ Dawson. Spotify, SoundCloud, it's all going to be KJ Dawson. So like I said, yeah, thanks for having me, and hopefully I'll be back on one of these motherfuckers soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Again, that's KJ Dawson on Spotify, coming soon. SoundCloud, Instagram. Follow him. Listen to his upcoming album. Our things to promote. We are now on Spotify. We're going to have all of the episodes on there by, I don't know, like 10 minutes after the podcast. There are 2 already on there, but I didn't get to do the rest of them. We're also on SoundCloud, right? There's only 1 episode on there, though. One of the things with the Cutting All Ties theme was sort of also cutting all ties with what the podcast used to be, because I feel like what it used to be was very ignorant and very... I think we used to be complacent. But I think now I want to be much more open to just being told that we're straight up wrong. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone in the chat is like, "Hey, that's a terrible take," let us know. We'll talk about it. I like doing more guests. I really liked having Kyle on this episode. It was very, very fun times. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Promoting things. Spotify, maybe SoundCloud, definitely YouTube, Instagram, Zero Budget Pod. Make sure to help us promote, get the word out, so we get more listeners and more people to tell us that we're dumb people who don't know what we're talking about. This has been the Zero Budget Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And I'm gonna end the podcast